Okay, let's get started. I was just telling my fellow panelists that I really love this image because everyone looks so professional, and then I look like the intern. I really feel like I need to redo my picture in some kind of way. But thank you, everyone, for showing up for another session, this session. I really hope you enjoyed the morning and the morning session. Well, that was afternoon already. I really hope you enjoyed the first session that we did. And that you enjoyed the lunch. I saw everyone frantically talking to each other, sharing experiences, maybe doing a little bit of therapy, I hope. I think this is also kind of like a therapy session. So that was good already, and I hope we can also make things better with this panel. So we're going to talk about driving efficiency in cross-functional teams in a world that is increasingly automated, intelligent automation, AI, all of these things that we already started talking about this morning. I'm super happy that I have a really great panel with me here to make sense of it all, because they are the ones that are living it and the actual experts, I hope. So that's pretty good. So let's start off with a quick introductory round. Can I start with you, Hunter?
Sure. I'm Hunter Henley from Dallas, Texas. I make the most noise.
Yeah. Oh.
I lead the audit analytics and continuous monitoring, continuous auditing practice for Protiviti. I've been with our firm for 9 years, and I've been in altogether 9 years. It took a 10-year break, and I've been in this particular area since 2013. So great to be here and speak with you all.
I love the 10-year break. It's quite a break.
It is. Fortunately, during that 10 years is when I got into the things I do now.
Well, there we go.
Some of my former colleagues I was able to catch up with from my previous firm. So.
Awesome. Moving to Ray.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rui Sun. I'm an audit manager at Matthews, Carter and Boyce. We're a regional firm in Fairfax, Virginia, with about 100 employees, and we provide audit, tax, outsourced accounting services, and specialize in the audit practice, specialized in not-for-profit, private equity, government contracting, and real estate. And I've been with the firm for 10 years, and we have grown from 40 people firm to 100 people firm. So it's really exciting to be in that journey. And I'm super excited to be here with everyone here today.
Amazing. And last but not least.
Hi, everybody. Des Rosiers. I work at KPMG Canada. I'm what we call an Audit Innovation Senior Manager. A little bit of a hybrid role, but seems pretty in line with my peers today. I split my time between audit delivery, working with a mix of private and public clients, and my national audit innovation role is really an internal enablement role where our goal is just to make sure that all our audit peers, onshore, offshore, across Canada, have the right tools to work with on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome.
Super excited to be here.
Amazing. So maybe, Chris, maybe to stay with you immediately, can you give us some insight into one benefit of the continued integration of automation and AI in your sector, and maybe also one risk that you see?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to start this, I think the biggest point that I'd like to make today to everybody, but I'm sure you're all aware already, is that AI, when it's done properly and responsibly, really does have two primary outcomes that are immediately obvious benefits. It helps drive efficiency and really better data-enabled decision making. So KPMG Global recently had a survey, and of the Canadian respondents, a majority of companies reported they're currently either piloting or using AI in their financial reporting processes, which I found a little surprising, to be honest, that it was a majority, not a sample. And those stakeholders, which were primarily VPs and CEOs and CFOs, we asked them, what are the benefits you perceive? And I think they're good ones for the group, and everyone should probably identify with them. They listed out that they were able to better identify trends and their impacts. They were able to make better data-enabled decisions. And interestingly, they listed as their third top benefit increased data accuracy and reliability, which as auditors, hopefully, is exciting.
Yeah, I love that. And is there any risky business associated with it as well, or is it all good?
Risk is part of what we do, right? We're auditors. It's par for the course. So at KPMG, we have what we call our ethical AI framework, and it's based on our core values, but has three real foundational pillars. Value-centric, people-focused, and trustworthiness. The one I like to speak to, because as an auditor and as a senior manager who still works in audit delivery, I'm concerned with, is the explainability. So black box is like almost a dirty word. Let's be frank, as auditors, whether you're internal or external audit, it's not what we're looking for. At KPMG, we absolutely need to be able to understand why, whether it's an algorithm or a tool or a solution, why a transaction or a trend has been highlighted. I'm not asking for dinner plans with my wife and daughter. I'm highlighting something that needs to be discussed with an audit client, right? And that carries weight.
Yeah.
It's work for my team, it's work for the client, and it's an area of focus for us. So explainability really is something that we feel is core. And when that's kept in mind, you have a fantastic solution that helps enable your people.
Love that. Ray, what's your perspective?
Yeah, so one of the benefits that we identified from using the automation tool is to increase our staff satisfaction, especially in this job market. It definitely helps prevent burnout, especially during busy season. A few hours that you saved each week, we tell our employee you can use that to get some extra sleep, share time with your family, do some exercise. So we see some happy employees by doing that, which is very important. And it also helps attract newcomers, especially in this market. When we had the job interview, and when we mentioned about automation AI, you can see the candidates' eyes are open. You can easily attract their attention. Which is, I think is a benefit to, increase the productivity as well.
Amazing. And do you also have rules, like internal rules around the use of AI to make sure that you at least cover for some of the risks of also using AI?
So talking about risk, I wanted to bring this point of, I think it's a lot of times, there's any emerging technology that there's inherent risk, associated with it, right? In a case of AI, it can be data security, it can be data management, it can be, it can be integrity. So I think a lot of the risk came from fear because it's from an unknown world, and we're just. What we need to do is to empower ourselves to keep learning, and that helps to mitigate that risk, to some extent. And also, if we have a community, we can share our thoughts. We can identify, better way to utilize the tool because it's really the human who gives the technology life, right?
Yeah.
So and then we can, having a community, we can also find ways to mitigate the risk as well.
Amazing. Thank you. And Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about risk, that's very broad. You almost have to ask about which domain of risk. Your implementation risk is going to be different than your user risk. So I'm going to focus on getting the right answers from AI. And one of the concerns that I see a lot is, well, I've done this, but I didn't get the right response. When I reviewed it, it wasn't correct. And to highlight that, I think that you have to learn how to interact with it. And you have to understand how it's speaking to you, which is going to be very literally, right? So learning how to speak to it literally, learning the different techniques to get the answer that you want is necessary in order to get the answer that you want or you need. So the risk that I think is most prevalent in the audit world for using AI is making sure that the user is trained in how do I interact with this to get what I want. Or what I need. And what you often see is I didn't get that, so AI didn't work, or it doesn't work. I personally have never seen it where it didn't work. I've seen it where we didn't interact with it in a way that it truly understood. what we were trying to do. So knowing which prompt and which prompt technique in order to get what you want out of it, I think is key. And from getting to the right result or the right conclusions in audit, making sure that you're using the right techniques and know that it's not going to answer your question in the way you want the first time.
Yeah.
You're probably 5 prompts in before you start getting close. But that's a minimal time investment, minutes, right? To get there. And I think the other thing you have to understand is the answers that you're going to get back is going to largely depend on how well your model is trained, and that is often forgotten too.
Yeah.
From a benefits, we use it through the entire audit cycle. I mean, we use it for everything from work programs to risk assessment to planning. We even use it for internal purposes. Like, what does our policy say about something?
Yeah.
So we use it for all of that. A use case that I'm working up right now to demonstrate some of our clients is testing a series of SOX controls using only AI. So everything from getting to the test scripts, to the work program, to actually executing that, to getting your work papers as your output. You can do all of it.
Yeah.
You just have to know how to interact.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest risk and also one of the biggest benefits.
Yeah. No, super important take. And maybe before we move on off this of the risk topic, have you ever received some communication from some of your clients that they might be worried that you're doing a lot with automation or that you're using AI? Like, how do you deal with communication like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I have some clients that are just adamantly opposed to AI. One client I can think of that they feel that AI and the way models are trained has used some of their data and they don't like that. So there's like, you can't use AI at all. So, okay. The others are mostly concerned about where's their data going. So how you've architected your own solution is key. Ours goes only one way.
Yeah.
So, we're using big large language models that are commercially available as well as, trained on our own, but it's only one direction. It comes to us. Our stuff doesn't go to them. So it's in the same systems with the same security, the same access as anything else that we would use from a data point of view. To do the work, you got to have some element of their data. So,
Sure.
It's in the same place. So it's not quite as much of a risk as what it seems. But how you architect that and how you communicate that is key to get.
Is key. Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, maybe along the same lines, is the framework that you just mentioned also publicly available to your clients, or is it an internal framework?
That's a very good question. I believe it is available to our clients. It's part of our transparency report, that's for sure. And you talked on it. Part of being a tool owner, previously pre-AI was a little bit clear cut. It's getting harder and harder, but you have to understand what you're working with, right? And that's, whether it's a framework or whether it's your risk management policies or your guidelines or how you use it and how you teach and deploy and work with it on a day-to-day basis, being just anchored and properly starting with a good foundational understanding of what you're working with helps you stay on side.
Yeah.
You still need very specifics. Let's say, as a Canadian, we have data residency considerations that are similar maybe to yours, but for example, some companies don't want stuff leaving Canada and going to the States, and obviously as a major market, a lot of data warehousing happens in the States or processing happens in the States. But if you don't have that foundational understanding, you can't have an intelligible conversation and keep fostering that trusted relationship. It was discussed this morning, trusted advisors. I think we all aim to be that, whether it's internally with your stakeholders or externally as auditors. It's a relationship, and you have to build that and nurture it. And if you don't understand your tools, I don't think you can easily do that.
Yeah, true. Okay, so to stay with understanding and making things as clear as possible, I think, especially when it comes to AI and potentially also intelligent automation, we hear a lot that companies are using it and they're using it daily. And it's, you just mentioned, we use it through our entire processes, but let's make that really practical. So can you give examples, and maybe Chris will just stay with you. Can you give examples of like daily usage of AI and how that's basically also impacted the way you do your daily job, or for your colleagues, for example?
Yeah, for sure. So we recently launched our AI-powered chatbot internally. We call it the KPMG Clara AI Chat. So it's part of our end-to-end audit platform, KPMG Clara, that's data-enabled at its core. integrated everything from a web browser to it's built into our actual audit workflow. And it's an LLM-based chatbot, but it's been trained also on our internal audit manuals that are, I'm sure, like if all of you, thousands of pages long, challenging to navigate at times. And really, because it's an LLM chatbot, it allows users to very easily and conversationally, providing the prompting is done properly and people understand the limitations with prompting, conversationally find the proper guidance and framework they're looking for. And that can be anything from, what are the basic tenets of inherent risk documentation that we consider the absolute minimum that needs to be considered from a KPMG standpoint to my colleague here, Michelle, recently gave an excellent training where we showed users how you can even use it for real-time review. So spin up your documentation. If you're able to craft the prompt well, and it's very doable, you can ask it to consider the relevant guidance, consider your answer, and give you review notes in real time. So that's something that whether you're a first-year analyst or like myself as a senior manager, I'm preparing something maybe that's going to national professional practice, that's insane, right? I don't have to call a partner and ask them to heat check my first draft of something. I'm able to use the tool day to day and have it just challenge me. Do I have a good first draft that I'm proud to escalate to whoever my reviewer is?
Yeah. Amazing. Ray.
Yeah, awesome. So I primarily work in the non-for-profit sector. So we often handle extensive grant documents, and we have to do compliance testing and dual purpose testing. And by using the automation tool like Data Snipper, and we were able to consolidate all the thousands of pages long documents into one place and in a very summarized, organized manner. And I call it a multi-layer time-saving system because it's not only for the preparer to extract data from the source document, from the agreements, but also for the reviewer. And they're so happy to find out that they no longer need to open every single grant document if they want, which saved them a lot of time. So that really helped us to improve our efficiency.
Super cool.
One area that we're looking at is pre-built prompts in order to test controls. And in our early testing of user access reviews, we've gone from a measured 120 hours that it took for our client to do it to 8 hours for us to do it using AI. So the ratio was 120 to 8. Can we do that every time remains to be seen. We're still building this stuff out, but early on it looks promising. And so we're in the process of building prompt libraries that are available. So you have these particular source documents for this particular audit, this particular context. Here are your prompts. You use those prompts to test, that control, and it goes all the way from your source documents to your downloadable work paper.
Yeah.
120 to 8 is a good ratio, so we're proud of that, but we have to see if we can pull it off as many times as we want.
Yeah, and I was sort of looking for that answer because I think all of three of you mentioned prompting before, but I think prompting is almost like a science by itself, right? Like I use AI for marketing, and I feel like my prompts are pretty basic. Like the one trick I think I know is the no yapping thing, so that it will just give you information and no weird, extra words or whatever to its answer. But that's all I can do. So how do you make sure that your employees also know, or your clients or your colleagues know how to do a prompt? And I think this is a good example.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I think I would say to that is it's not quite as big deal as it sounds. You put AI or automation or analytics in front of something and people get really worked up like it's this big thing. It's not that different. I mean, how many of us have been using Excel since the Roman Empire? Almost all of us, right? How many times have you gotten formula wrong?
Always.
Always. You find it, you fix it, right? It's not. It's the same. It's the same thing, except for instead of a formula, it's going to be a sentence.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an iterative process on that. Sure, there's risk, but I don't think the risk is a whole lot more than using Excel. Yeah. It's all about how do you prompt it. But you do have to make sure, just like you have to make sure that your your teammates know how to use Excel, you got to know how to prompt.
Yeah.
So teaching them the techniques of prompting, what to expect from each type. One type that we use a lot is the critical feedback method, right? So it gives us one output, we criticize it, and it shies away and goes and fixes itself based off of our criticism. And over time, it actually begins to predict that criticism. So learning how to interact with it like that, I think, is the key from a user perspective, from both a benefits and a risk management point of view. But it's not an overwhelming risk. It's not that different than using an Excel formula. You just got to know how to do it and learn it. And when you do that, you're off to the races.
Yeah, makes sense. So while we're on the topic of teams, and maybe let's just stay with you. So I'm guessing all three of you work pretty closely with different kinds of teams, probably also cross-functional. So there's a lot of people that will cross your desk and a lot of people that will basically interact or work on the same stuff that you're working on. So can you describe a little bit of how you collaborate with different teams and cross-functional teams while you're doing your work? And then as a second question, can you also describe how technology is hopefully helping you improve that collaboration and potentially even AI?
Yeah, starting with me, is that what we said?
We're staying with you.
So one of the areas of my practice is continuous monitoring and continuous auditing, and those are not the same things. Continuous monitoring in this context does not mean continuous control monitoring, which is where we often think it does. It's actually something different. And it requires management. In fact, not just audit, but management. In fact, management is the audience of that. So you have to collaborate with those different functions. How that works, over the course of time, I have personally never seen either continuous monitoring or continuous auditing originate from anywhere except internal audit. I'm sure it's happening, because I haven't seen every case that's ever been done. But in my experience, it has always begun there. So there's the convincing, of management. Why is this a good idea? Here's the benefits you're going to get out of it. And once you're able to see that, they usually get on board. And then you got to work through your independence things, and all of that kind of thing. But in technology is just the enabler. You're not going to be able to have continuous auditing or continuous monitoring without having advanced analytics first. That's the root of the tree. Everything else is the branches. Yeah. So you have to start at the right place and then build it out to kind of show where all of that stuff is going and how it all kind of comes together. Being able to show both management and audit what those benefits are, how it builds off of each other, and putting that roadmap in front is key to getting the buy-in. This may be a secret to a lot of people, but management tends to think audit is separate than them. Did you know that?
No, no idea.
So being able to show that together and bring all, your line one management, risk management, and internal audit together into a cohesive approach to risk management. The roles are similar, but aligning that where it's an aligned and continuous assurance is where all of this is headed and where it's all going. So being able to show that and what each team is getting out of it, I found to be the key to collaboration.
Amazing. Chris, what's your perspective?
Yeah, well, for the external auditors here, you can all attest there's always more work. Unless if it's a Canadian thing, it feels like the regulators are always increasingly concerned with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and rightfully so. They're an integral part of the audit process and an important stakeholder. And then when you bring teams together, and whether it's client teams or other teams within the firm, or even other professional service firm teams that might be providing other services, you just bring a lot of different stakeholders. And we share a common goal. Let's get the statements mailed or published or whatever terminology you use at your firm on time. But everyone's day-to-day prioritizations change, and that's perfectly normal. We have different processes, different priorities. And technology is just, for us at KPMG anyways, a really nice way to do more in less time. Data Snipper is one awesome example of it. Financial Statement Suite is my a little bit of French for those of you here is my coup de coeur. Absolutely, the great equalizer. It gives me back time with my family. But it lets us do more in less time. So when you sort of that pressure, that cooking pot, everybody's a little stressed out, the deadline's coming, if you're responsibly using intelligent automation, it's a really good opportunity to just get to the finish line together on time, collaboratively, in my experience.
I love that. I'm going to put that on the website, like FSS, it gives you time back with your family. I think that will do really well. I think it's a good quote. Thanks. Ray, moving to you next.
Yeah. So we have a diverse, relatively diverse client base in our firm. And all the managers above are usually specialized in one or two areas. And then we have a staff pool who is available to work with, all the specialized teams. So sometimes there could be collaboration challenges because the specialized team have different backgrounds, may have different subcultures, or different even level of proficiencies in terms of tech. So we're trying to find ways to bring people together. Food, music, art, can bring people together, right? And we found out that tech can also bring people together.
Oh.
Yeah. So what we did was we found some testings that can be used for across all the sectors, and then we train our staff, the pool, right? And then we show them the use cases, and it's amazing to see that when they work in one sector, and then when they rotate, they bring the idea that they learned from the first one to the second one, and that tricks and tips that they bring became a universal language that everyone speaks. So and that's amazing to see, because that break the ice. And also improve the communication, and also cultivate this bottom-up culture within our firm. I think when it comes to tech, it's really important to have a tone at the top, to have the management support, provide the resources, but the true driving force comes from the staff level. Because this new generation now is a Gen Z, and a few years it will be Gen Alpha. They are super independent and super innovative. So if you give them opportunities, they will grab it and then run with it. So.
I love that. So when we asked a similar question I think it was in Amsterdam, when we asked a similar question, one of the audience members or panelists, I don't remember, said that technology also made auditing more fun. What do you think of that statement?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of brainstorming sessions in our firm, and we add a tech session in every single audit planning meeting. That session is the fun part of the audit of that meeting, and we don't mandate it's not a mandatory, tool to use, especially a data snipper. We just, started to implement it a year ago. But it's amazing to see that, because we didn't make it mandatory, and there's no limits. So everyone have their own idea, and then we cultivate that culture so that, especially the younger staff, and they will just free to speak up, and then give them, opportunity to shine. And then we did get some great ideas that we can share across all the sectors.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then maybe just to stay with you, you mentioned when you started in your answer that you can also have to deal with different types of, or different levels of, let's say, technological prowess, or people that are basically used to using technology to do things, and people that are not used to using technology to do things at all. So can you share some of your experiences in basically working with cross-functional teams that have these different levels, but also in implementing technology and, for example, implementing or running some of the strategies that you just mentioned that should ensure adoption of technology? Right,
yeah. So let me put it this way. I really see, the key to make a success story in terms of implementation contains 5 ingredients. So the first one is you have to have a very clear vision, holistic view of where we're going to be, and then elaborate that to the management and for them to make decisions, provide resources. And then the second ingredient is to have a very good pilot team and to find the right candidate or client or test to pilot on. So in our firm, we have, considering different level of proficiencies in technology, we have a cross-functional and cross-experience level pilot team, which works really well because we asked everyone to find one example, one test that they think they can increase efficiency. And especially the younger staff, we let them present to the firm. And it really sparks interest from them and create accountability. And then we also use real client, current year data, so that makes people think that it's very directly relevant to us. So that is huge too. And then throughout the pilot program, we collect data. Audit is all about documentation, right? So the pilot program itself, we document it. We have our shared log where we can collaboratively work and put notes on it. Every single client that we piloted on, we put the client info there, which section, which testing that we use data snippers on, and how many hours we saved, what questions that we had, and what problem that we faced, and how did we resolve those problems. And at the end, we come up with a use case and then present to the firm. So that works really well because it collects data for us to have evidence about whether this tool fits our business.
Yeah.
And the third ingredient is to have a great project management, including planning. Have a very clear timeline. Everybody knows their roles, their goals, how to set up the training and the Q&A session, and the end, how to present the use cases. And the most important thing here is that we take an agile approach. So to me, big problems overwhelm people. So we start from smaller ones, and then we focus on the here and the now. So we ask, we have that brainstorming session firm-wise at the beginning, and then what's more powerful is what we have discussed before is the mini brainstorming sessions, which brings ideas, and then we capture those moments that people have questions. We address those on the spot. So we create those aha moments, when you combine the emotion and the information, right? Then people will remember and they will share. Yeah. So those are amazing. And then we tell people that don't expect that you know all the features. And the goal is not become a master of a tool. The goal is to solve your problem and to find a problem that you can use the tool to solve, right? So, and then the fourth ingredient is to analyze the needs for each user group. And I think we already started to do that, to customize the training in terms of user group and reviewers group. That works really well. And then the last ingredient that I can think of, and I think it's a secret ingredient, is a child-like mindset. And it's amazing to see that it has nothing to do with age, with gender, or whatever language you speak. It's all about curiosity. And we tell people that don't be afraid to make mistakes, and we're all piloting, in this journey. And I, as the lead of the pilot team, give myself grace to make 3 mistakes per day. So you can do the same. So everyone think no problem.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think
Sure.
there were a lot of learnings in there. That's cool. Chris, maybe going to you next. So what's KPMG's perspective on this?
Yeah, so I think we can all attest to that technology is getting more exciting, for sure. But as it gets exciting, it gets complex. And AI is, I think that's front and center. Most of us understand the complexities of it, especially if you think of Gen AI and LLMs and the unique challenges those present. And training really is key. One of our foundational pillars that I mentioned is the people, right? And that means your people need to be trained. And that's not necessarily just, historically, there was a big focus on UI, functionality. And today, I think it's increasingly important that training goes end to end and covers stuff like limitations. There are inherent limitations in LLMs. It's okay. It becomes a problem if your users don't understand those limitations. Similarly, risk management, data processing, privacy considerations, architecture, as you mentioned before, it's never been more complicated. And again, that's all okay. But we really do believe that proper training, repetition is obviously key, but also just being very transparent with absolutely all the stakeholders you're working with helps everybody understand and really understand the tools. And that foundational understanding then helps them integrate it into their day-to-day. So it's not something that I'm shoving down people's throats. They want to use it because they understand the benefits. They understand how to really incorporate it in their daily activities. And that's when you get really good uptake that benefits everyone. And it's not uptake just so I have a KPI so that I can tell my partners at the end of the year I got X usage out of the tool and we have an ROI. It's bettering the firm and bettering the audit experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Hunter, we're moving to you, but then with a different question, if that's
All right,
okay.
let's do it.
So we did an AI study. We did it this year. We also did it last year. And when we did it last year, we asked the question whether or not auditors thought that AI was going to replace them. And 80% said that in some way or form they thought AI was going to replace them. And then we repeated the same question this year. And this year, 50% said that AI was not going to replace them, but it actually was going to be an extension to the professional that they are and basically their professional career. 2 questions. So how would you explain that massive jump and difference? And then the second, what's your perspective on that?
Well, first, I think that AI is maturing and we're starting to see more and more of what it actually is and what it actually isn't. And I think that's helping people getting that right perspective on that. I think we're still exploring, what are the full capabilities, that it's going to do for us. But I don't think it's ever going to replace people. There was the presentation earlier today gave 3, big reasons why that, isn't going to happen. But I also think that part of it is knowing how to do something or having AI do it as compared to a person or whatever is one thing. Knowing what to do with it is something different. And being able to fill in the nuances of that and contextualize it is something that AI has not achieved yet. And I don't think it will. Now, as far as it replacing people, my perspective on that, I don't think AI is going to replace audit. I don't think it's going to replace most professions. I do think people who learn how to use AI will. So I don't think it's AI itself that we have to really think about replacing us or anyone.
Yeah.
I think it's the people who are taking the time to master AI and staying on top of it. I think those are the people that may replace the others.
So AI is not replacing you, but the auditor that knows how to use it is replacing you.
I think that's going to be true in almost all professions.
Yeah.
Where it is there. And I'm going to speak from the consulting side because that's where I live. And we have always had this concept of there's a person at the top, and then top of a pyramid, and then it's wider at the bottom. I think that we're seeing that change. It's no longer broad at the bottom, it's broad in the middle. And there's just not as much there at the bottom because it took more people to take documents and type them into spreadsheets, which now Data Snipper does an excellent job of, all of that. So coming out of a university, that used to be what we did, when we were associates. Well, now there's technology that's doing that part. But it's not replacing them. It means that you have to be a more mature professional earlier in your career, which really highlights the need for mentoring, for teaching. I think it's key for retention because I think people recognize, that, and it's a little fearful. But I think it really highlights how we all have to evolve. And those of us who've been in the profession for a while, I think we have to be better mentors. I think we have to be better teachers. I think we have to be diligent about that. And we have to take that upon ourselves to do that because there is going to be less responsibilities. But it's not necessarily less people. It's an evolution of that. I think you just have to be more mature in those things earlier in your career because it's no longer about typing in things from a document. Now it's about managing people. It's about managing relationships earlier on than what it used to be. It's not going to replace this, though.
Love that. I think we can all agree with that, right? Yeah. Then, in the interest of time, I want to end with one question and then open it up to the audience. If you guys have any questions, then you're obviously also very welcome to ask them to the panel. So let's be bold and look 5 years ahead and basically look 5 years ahead in technological change and everything that's going to, or anything that maybe is already in place right now or is only going to evolve. What do you think is the biggest change? And maybe starting with Chris, and then we're moving all the way here, and then we'll open it up.
Sure. The last 5 years have been a bit of a wild ride, right? We went through a global pandemic. Remote work became the new norm for many of us. I don't see it slowing down. I don't know about any of you. It doesn't seem to be from my perspective. If anything, the pace is only picking up. There's more data. It's larger. Velocities coming in quicker. Client expectations are tighter. Regulators are, again, getting increasingly granular. Auditing standards. This morning, ESG, blockchain, crypto. It's not overwhelming. It's exciting. It's an opportunity to grow. You discussed it before. It's not sink or swim. But I think if you're not embracing this, and if you're not doing it responsibly with whatever framework works for your firm and your stakeholders, probably going the way of the dinosaur.
For sure. Ray.
Yeah. So I think intelligent automation and AI go hand in hand. It's definitely the next big thing. And automation to me is a crucial step toward AI, which everybody started to do that, experience that, and you're gonna have standardized documentation, and then you can automate your processes, and then which provides us enormous amount of data which made AI possible, right? So all that if you think about it in a history. Since Industrial Revolution, every single major advancement is marketed as a pivot moment in the history, right? And now we're, I think, fortunate to experience another one. AI definitely has the potential to dramatically change the way people live, communicate, and work. And in terms of, in the audit world, there's definitely new ways for us to explore, how to do the audit testing, how to document our testing, and how to get the source documents, and then how do we serve our clients, and then how do we hire, how do we train, and there's lots of treasure to hunt. I was at Outer Banks a few weeks ago. I was with my family, and we visited the Wright brother memorial, and I was telling my kid, this is the spot that those two first pilots took off, And I was telling myself, and that's the same day that I got an invitation from Christina to come here to speak. And I thought,
We planned that.
I know, yeah. So then I'm telling myself, aren't we just, piloting another adventure here? It's a very exciting journey, and I'm so happy to be in this journey, and especially, willing to be a pilot leading the way.
Amazing answer. Hunter, you can top it.
Yeah. First of all, I heard Outer Banks. I love that show. Speaking of audit and how I think it's going to change, let's first take a look at where, kind of how we got here, right? Let's divide our time between 2013 through 2016, probably, give or take. You could, maybe shift it. Auditors did the best they could with what we had. We use statistics in our sampling, statistical sampling. I mean that differently than probably what you're reading in textbook, but data wasn't at scale. Technology wasn't at scale. So we had to work and figure out what are the best ways of doing this without that. 2013, 2016, somewhere in that time range, it shifted. Data became to scale. Technology came to scale. Now we have to get our methodologies caught up. So I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a shift in not only the technology, but how do we audit? And if you are a fellow, I'm just going to call myself a nerd here, a few words I could put to it. We're going to shift from what has historically been statistics into probability in our sampling, in our audits. It's what advanced analytics does, actually. I think we're going to see a shift more towards that from a methodology point of view. It's assumed the technology is going to continue or exceed. I think we have to catch up to that now, rather than the technology catching up to us. And I think that's going to be a big shift over the next 5 years. I also think, along those lines, that it's going to be difficult to keep pace with, the changes. There's a million technologies that's coming out, but they're all kind of the same in a lot of ways, and they're also different too. But, pick and choose. You're not going to be able to get everything, right? So pick what is, where you need to be, and take some time every week to study and read. You're gonna need that. I need that. I take 4 hours a week, and I said, no matter what, these 4 hours I'm going to do training, because things are changing so fast that I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
So I devote 4 hours a week, and that's on top of everything else, just to stay there. I think that we're going to have to see more and more, but I think the changes are going to primarily have to come from people and not from technology. We're going to have to adopt adjust how we do things, and we're going to have to spend more time on staying up on how to do that in the different ways that's being done. The technology is always going to advance. We have to advance too.
I think that's a great answer to end the panel with. We now have, let's call it 3 minutes for questions. I'm being pointed at. 2 minutes. Is there anyone that has a question to our panel? There we go.
You said you were spending 4 hours a week, but I guess for everybody, how are you continuing your own education? What is really driving your week to week? Just specific examples, sources. Is it LinkedIn Learning? What's driving that?
For me, a lot of it is LinkedIn Learning if I'm trying to do something technical. LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, Percipio, there's a million things that's out there. But I also think just taking the time to look and see what are the different trends and what are people writing about it is important to kind of be able to stay a little bit about what do I even need to study in the first place. I think there's more to it than just the technical training. The literature, even if you look at the advanced analytics side, the literature is behind where we are even. It's still describing things that was, 5 years ago with what we did. So even that is catching up. or needs to catch up. So staying on top of that kind of thing, I think, is equally important to the technical side. But don't let the technical side go away. Just pick and choose on what you're going to study right now and let it evolve. It doesn't have to be the same thing all the time. Take the time just to read some books too, where things are going.
Ray and Chris?
I'm doing a master's right now. It's an executive style program. I think you guys in the States actually have way more options than we do up in Canada. I'm fortunate it's funded through my employer. It's not easy. Still do audit delivery. I have a 1.5-year-old at home who takes 120% of my energy every second she's awake and refuses to nap. Brought my laptop so that tonight I can study and tomorrow on the plane. But you mentioned it. It's a commitment, right? Mm-hmm. And if you want to stay at the forefront and you want to understand how to use these things responsibly and benefit from them, and again, understand them so you know how to integrate them in your day-to-day, either you're willing to make the effort or you're not. I think that's pretty binary. So you don't want to commit financially, Udemy is an awesome place to start. You want to dive in head first. Sign up for a master's.
And then Ray, how are you keeping yourself up to date and at the forefront of everything?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just keep my beginner mindset. That's very important, just to keep learning. And every time I read something, I jot down, I take notes, and then you can put everything on the board and then organize everything, and that really helps you organize your thoughts. Then sometimes I take 1 degree away from where I'm going to. I take a technology class with my kids, doing the robot fish, and they just joined the first Lego League. So you see the trends. It's not just audit, just not finance. It's everywhere. It's you need to have a holistic view of everything, what's happening out there.
Amazing. Yeah. All right, then let me be the first to thank you all for participating in the panel. I thought all of your answers were super insightful and really amazing. I'm hoping that you all loved it as well, and I'm also hoping that you want to join me in a massive applause for our panelists today.